Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. Everybody could rise to say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Deputy Clerk Williams, you call the roll.
Trustee Brown. Present. Trustee Clark. Trustee Lynch. Trustee Roll. Here. Trustee Taylor. Present. Trustee Williams.
Present. Somebody like to make a motion for the approval of the board meeting minutes of October 15th, 2024? So moved. Trustee Williams. Trustee Clark. Any questions, corrections? Deputy Clerk Williamson, call the roll.
Trustee Williams.
Aye.
Trustee Taylor.
Yes.
Trustee Roll.
Yes.
Trustee Lynch.
Yes.
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
Trustee Brown.
Yes.
Treasurer's report, Brian Hanson.
So Good evening. I handed out some revised for the AP, so I'll talk through those here. The grand total of AP for November 1st was $569,760.19. That is reduced from what was originally dispersed because of three duplicate payments identified. One for Martin Wallen for $637.80. One for Elmore Lawn at $3,109.03, and then one for vertical assets for $54,976. So those are backed on the numbers that I'm going to read. So those payable for November 1st, corporate was $221,229.62. Motor fuel tax was $10,000. Sewer and water was $27,130.53. Foreign fire insurance was $2,385. TIF Industrial Park was $12,000. TIF Main Street $1,891.25. Glenwood Golf Course $27,946.39. Halsted North was $177,598.34. And TIF Halsted South was $89,579.06. Again, the total then ended up being $569,760.19. With this, we need to have a contiguous transfer of $240,000 from the industrial TIF to Halsted North TIF. The other transfer I wanted to mention, so this is just kind of a footnote to all of you, is for $503,588.92 between the ARPA account at Fifth Third Bank to corporate, because we've never really reduced the ARPA funds and we're still sitting at the full value, but we have spent ARPA funds since 2023. So again, we spent $503,588.92, so I'm just trying to get that balance to be consistent with what we have left to spend on ARPA.
Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the bills payable? So moved. Trustee Lynch.
Second.
Trustee Roll. Any questions?
I have a few. Brian, a question for you. So I know we have to spend these ARPA funds by next month, right?
So the way I read the final ruling was we have to have the projects identified by the end of December of this year. Payout has to be done by the end of December in 2026.
So do we have village administration at least, because I don't remember the discussion from the board's perspective, but have we had any has there been any conversation about how we're going to earmark these funds?
We will be having those conversations at the upcoming meetings.
So we have one remaining meeting before it has to be earmarked. Because you said before December, right, or at the end of December?
End of December.
No, it has to be spent by 2026, but we have to earmark it by December of this year. We have to have it earmarked. Okay. And then, so, this, tip transfer, what was that for? Is that for the fire station?
Mostly, yes. Yes, to cover the bills that were paid in the industrial, or I'm sorry, Halsted North.
And, I'm sorry, let me just digress. When we got work with our performance, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, would have been sure this year, but I thought that these funds had to be restricted in a separate account, and not combined with our corporate general fund.
So they're sitting in a separate bank account, but when the funds were paid based on where the project was completed. So for instance, the Blakey Center was part of what was spent.
No, I'm not questioning the expenses, but I guess my concern is transferring these ARPA funds from the ARPA account, which is restricted, to a corporate account. If I'm not mistaken, I thought that these funds had to remain isolated.
They were isolated, they were in their own account.
But this motion here, not motion, but this activity was to be transferred to the corporate fund, right?
Right, so now we're taking it from that independent account, that was set up just for our funds, and now moving it back to the accounts where the costs came out of.
So you're saying you could replace it?
Correct.
All right. And Brian had a few questions with some bills payable. And Deputy Chief Walsh, maybe you can answer this, but I see I've got a check to Midwest Air Pro for $30,000. Is that for the new fire station? It says vehicle exhaust system.
That would be my guess, yeah. That's
For what?
vehicle exhaust system for, is mandated by IDOL and the FDA for the capture of the exhaust fumes inside the building. So that's it out.
So it's for the building, not the vehicle, because this says vehicle.
Just for the building.
It's for the building, okay. This is, I'll see this inside. All right. And then, I think we got a vehicle for Robinson, and close to $5,000. And I'm trying to look at it, but this one doesn't show reimbursement. I'm just trying to figure out, and part of this cost is revisions to the engineer design per Silken. Why are we paying that and not Mr. Patel?
You hear? I was waiting for the microphone, sorry.
Oh,
The agreement with the purchase states that the village paid for the design of the parking lot, and to get more spaces, we eliminated the swale in the middle and converted it to permeable.
so part of the agreement, we sold that property, but then we're also responsible for this particular aspect of it as well.
Correct. So when these revisions are complete, I will just be handing off those plans to Mr. Silken, and he will pay to construct the lot.
So are there any other expected expenses that you know of, Joe? I'm sorry, not Joe, Dave?
No, this should be it. This should be one and done.
All right, just 3 more questions, I apologize for it. So, Deputy Chief Walsh, perhaps you can answer this one too. I'm looking at a bill from Metco Erection for $36,000. And it says upon demo was found that existing, part of the existing building in the fire station was unstable. And then there is, that's $17,500 and $18,000 for modifications to the original plan. So this wasn't part of the fire station budget, right? This is an additional $36,000. Do we know, building issue, what?
I would have to take a look at the invoice. So it should have been sent, signed off on by the chief for the approval of it.
Were these in our packet?
No.
What you're referencing to?
No.
So how do we know what you were?
These are bills. You want to see? I set them to the side. I'll let you have a shown to you.
Trustee Roll, normally in the packet, you get the summarized dollar amounts.
But not specific.
Since Dion's a signer, he gets the invoices to sign off on the checks, so he can see the detail behind them.
And then Brian, the, got a check for Heritage for 17,000. Is that coming from, where account is that coming from?
That one's, the 17,000 one, if I recall, was coming from TIF, industrial, or not industrial, Halsted North. Heritage 17, correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Is there any other questions? Deputy Clerk Williamson, call the roll.
Trustee Williams?
Aye.
Trustee Taylor?
Yes.
Trustee Roll?
Yes.
Trustee Lynch?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Trustee Brown? Yes.
Item 2. Payroll.
For payroll, we had 2 payrolls on this meeting based on the extra week we had here. So payroll as of October 18th, corporate was $135,169.41. Sewer and water, $17,974.84. Paid on call, $11,810.35. Elected positions, $1,035.08. Glenwood Golf Course, $33,016.46. Vendor checks were $2,755.20. Overtime, police was at $3,297.17. Reimbursable was $553.49. Sewer and water, $497.51. Public Works overtime was $268.18. Economic Development stipend was $461.54. Admin stipend, $1,692.31. Total payroll was $207,978.05.
So we'd like to make a motion to approve the bills, the payroll as of October 18th, 2024.
So moved.
Trustee Lynch and Trustee Taylor. Are there any questions? Deputy Clerk Williamson, call the roll.
Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Trustee Lynch?
Yes.
Trustee Roll?
Yes.
Trustee Taylor?
Yes.
Trustee Williams?
Aye. November 1st payroll.
So for November 1st payroll, we had the corporate at $146,053.59. Sewer and water was at $17,456.33. Paid on call, $11,407.04. Elected positions, $5,341.04. Glenwood Golf Course, $31,822.96. Vendor checks were at $2,919.96. Police overtime was $7,390. Reimbursable was at $1,187.84. Sewer and water overtime was at $115.41. Public Works overtime was $62.14. Economic stipend was $461.54. Admin stipend, $1,596.31. Total payroll was $301,013.94. I will make one comment that if you look at the details here, there was $477, I'm sorry, of holiday pay on the police department based on the contract. It's paid out once a year, so that's what drove this payroll up much higher than the previous one.
Would somebody like to make a motion for the approval of the payroll of November 1st, 2024? Trustee Clark and Trustee Lynch. Any questions? Hey, Clerk Williamson, call the roll.
Trustee Williams.
Aye.
Trustee Taylor.
Yes.
Trustee Morrow. Trustee Lynch.
Yes.
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
Trustee Brown.
Yes.
The meeting is now open to the public. For anybody that wants to come up, just write your name and address down, and you can address the board.
Okay. All right. Hello. Yes. You gotta state your name. You know. There you go.
Okay, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to share my concerns regarding an ongoing issue my family has been facing. For many months now, a neighbor who resides in the building directly across from our home has been consistently parking her gold SUV in front of our home, even though there is ample parking available on her side of the street and behind her building. This has not only created a safety hazard for us when we're backing out of our driveway due to the obstruction of our view of oncoming traffic, it has also turned what used to be a beautiful view of our home into an eyesore, which among other things could potentially decrease the value of our home and neighborhood. The situation seems to have escalated after I politely raised concerns to the village officials about neighbors regularly using our driveway as a turnaround, which has now begun to cause wear and tear on our driveway and unreasonable deterioration. Although the street in front of our home is technically regarded as a public property, it has been our hope that the neighbors, with encouragement from the village officials, would willingly choose to extend civility and courtesy to us by refraining from parking in front of our house. We've lived here over 30 years and have always respected the neighborhood and have worked hard to ensure the upkeep of our property. However, the current tenants across the street seem to show little regard for the condition of both the property they occupy and our property too. The owner of the gold SUV in particular has displayed unneighborly behavior. She often cleans her car in front of our house, placing items on our lawn, trampling over the grass as though it was her own. We found personal items of hers scattered in our lawn, and on one occasion she blocked the vehicle. She blocked the vehicle of our lawn service company, preventing them from properly maintaining our yard. Despite being asked to move her car, she continued to break down her vehicle, causing unnecessary delays for our landscapers. On another occasion, a second vehicle, which we believe belongs to an individual who also resides in the same building, perhaps a family member, parked in such a way as to block our driveway. Additionally, a passenger in that vehicle, a man on crutches, struggled to walk across our lawn to reach the gold SUV. When using the sidewalk would have been a much easier route on the other side of the street. My mother takes great pride in her lawn, regularly fertilizing, watering, even laying new sod. It is disheartening to see it trampled on by people who clearly have no respect for the care and effort she puts into maintaining it. In addition to these incidents, we have observed that when the family parks across the street, they walk on their grass instead of using their sidewalk, further damaging their property and decreasing the value of our neighborhood. We fear that if this disregard for property continues, our home will be negatively impacted. board and mayor will consider implementing a no parking rule in front of our property, similar to what we've seen in other nearby communities like Matson and Homewood. This would allow us to reclaim the aesthetic beauty of our home and ensure that our property is respected. It is frustrating that some occupants of this one building refuse to use parking available behind their building, especially when other nearby condos make use of their designated spaces. As a visual example of the concern I have described, I have brought a few pictures to share with you. Thank you for your time and attention to this matter.
Ma'am, can you tell, what's your address?
560 Carroll Parkway.
So as you guys know, I tried to have the management company do something, both of the management companies, and they have not involved. Chief, if we could have you look, you live on Carroll Parkway, where all the condos are at, they live across the street from you. Right, you know, we can take a look and see what we can do as far as the parking there, goes, because they have ample parking in the back, back in their units.
And what Washington can certainly has work to install no parking signs on that side of the street. When our officers do respond there, they are correct. There are cars parked in front of their home on the street, but as they stated, they're parked legally on the street.
I don't know if that's gonna solve the problem, because then they're just parking on your side of the street.
Well, I think their issue is they're parking on the side opposite the condos in front of their single home. If we put no parking signs for that side of the street, it would alleviate the problem in front of your residents.
But it would have to be, if it's not on both sides of the street, they're just gonna park in front of your house. Not across the street from you, but right next to your house.
Right.
So, I mean, take a look at it and see if we can put the no parking there. Because this has been going on for, what, 2 years?
Yes.
I mean, we've gone through 2 management companies.
Yes. Yes.
And neither seems to comply. I've contacted them, and I got their contact information sheet if you want to talk to them. But they're just, I'm sure they sent out letters. I know Runaway Properties sent out letters before they were let go. But they're just ignoring the letters of what the tenants are doing. Is there something we can do where if we get permission from the management company, we can just write tickets to those people? Or does it have to be posted?
We can write the tickets if, the issue right now is that they're legally parking in front of the residence. But if we were to install a sign on the west side of Carroll Parkway in front of the residence, that would prohibit them from parking there. That would be able to cite them for parking where parking is prohibited.
Okay. Can you look into that?
Sure.
Talk with Joe. Okay. Thank you for coming. Everyone see you here.
Good evening. I'll be brief. So, my first issue is the minutes on the meeting on the October 15th. I believe we came to the conclusion that the project would be started in 60 days. The minutes don't reflect that, so I'm hoping that that's just a snafu with that. No one interfered with the first minutes. Okay, so the original balance of the ARPA funds was $1.185,977.73. And I remember asking our former finance director, Linda, to put that in separate account for accounting purposes. I also asked that that money was going to be put into an interest-bearing account. Had it been an interest-bearing account, it would have proved over $50,000 I was there. So that's money gone forever. So let me understand that we spent $503,588.92 of that funding, correct?
503,588.
That's what was spent so far, correct?
promises spent on the Underground Railroad Memorial Site. It was spent on the audio system,
Okay.
and I'm missing, what else am I missing?
I don't know.
The salt dome for Public Works, the Blakey Center roof.
Okay, all right, so, and I also recall asking for a town meeting back in 2022 to actually decide how we were gonna spend those funds. Unfortunately, the town meeting never happened. Okay, so my next question is, the ARPA funds require a report. The first report was due October 31st of 2021. As the bill has been filing those ARPA reports that are required by the United States Treasury.
You know that, Ryan, right?
The last, and John, know we're talking about, the last I saw was that depending on the amount you had, then required if you had to send a report, and we did not meet that threshold.
Well, according to the rules, you're going to have printed them out. So, we would be under 50,000 population. So yes, the first report, you are correct, did not need to be filed. But there still needs to be a quarterly report filed starting October 31st of 2021. Have we received a non-compliance letter from the Department of Treasury?
I have not received anything.
And last, does the village plan to make a loss or revenue claim with some of our funds?
No, we didn't want, I'm sorry.
A loss or revenue claim?
Revenue, I can hear.
A loss of revenue claim. Is that in the plan?
What will we base that on?
Well, you can use the ARPA funds if you can show a loss of revenue due to COVID. So in other words, let's say you lost $100,000 in sales tax due to COVID. And you use that money for lost revenue.
We'll definitely look into that.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Leon Moore, 318 Blackstone. I'm going to follow up on the accounting issues and try to get some answers in terms of some of the previous commitments in terms of following up. And then I need to speak to the proposed survey for a possible referendum that Mr. Downey had on the agenda. In regard to following up on some of the previous issues that we discussed, we were contemplating a funding mechanism for the pumper, and I know it was contingent on us getting some information over to the bank, and I guess that was predicated on us having an audit, and don't have a conclusion, not me personally, but the village does not have a conclusion yet, whether or not we hook up, and if not, is there a contingency plan, or we're just gonna try to fund that out of the next budgets and so forth. So that's a question that we need to resolve, at least to get some sense of closure. So if there's any additional information regarding whether or not we're in compliance with the base requirements in order to fund it, and if not, where do we go from there?
Park district goes.
I beg your pardon?
As far as the park district?
No. This is the pumper. In other words,
Oh,
remember our last conversation, we were still in effect obligated to get some information to the bank, so the bank could make a determination as to whether they're going to finance it for us. It was contingent upon an audit and additional information. Adam Ness is not here, but we asked for an extension. You got the extension? I understand. But anyway, we made a commitment here. I beg your pardon?
we should bring them down.
I see him. Well, okay, I don't know if someone else can answer this question. Do we have a commitment to the bank? And if not, what is the status of the financing and how do we, what's the but it's a fail-safe position. Because I understand we had to put the order in for the pumper. Now we gotta find out how we're gonna finance.
Yeah, I know that they took a preliminary audit, do you know if they've approved it yet? Right?
As of now, there's still work on the ad. I'm sending something to Adam right now, see if he has any updates, so I can use it back.
Okay, so we're still contingent, in other words, that's still an open item. We'd like to have for the public, and myself personally, some exposure on that. Because if we're gonna have to be looking at the pay as you go out of our budget, that is a tremendous commitment, as you all know. We're waiting to see what the answer to that is. Okay, the other item that we follow up on is the Miller Cooper contract. It was apparently terminated, or should have terminated, September 30th. And I'm not sure what the status of that is, because when I asked last time, we were gonna give them an additional time period, bring all this. Okay, fine. Okay, that's perfect. Now, what I'd like to do is, in the county also, the total cost of that contract should be made available, so we know what we paid for the consultants. I know they were on an hourly basis, so we need to have some sum total as to what that outlay was, so that the board can make a judgment, in terms of how we finance those kind of efforts going forward. Okay. That takes care of that. Now, the annual financial report, and I know that we talked last time about the comptroller's letters of warning that we can get the timely reports in, they would not disperse funds that were due to the village otherwise and things like that. So I looked on the website, it's not on the website in terms of that report. So I guess my concern and question is, how are we going to comply? I think the newspaper article indicate that the villagers that were warned had until the 31st of October. And so, one, did we get warned and did we comply? And that's an open question. Brian?
Yeah, I think Ryan can give an update. We've been in contact. They asked for a plan in terms of what we're doing in terms of getting that completed. Thus far from the plan that Brian put together and that we reviewed, they have not had any further questions, and we continue to stay in contact and follow the plan that we gave. Brian, is there anything to that?
Yeah, so the plan was that, based on getting the 22 audit done by December, was conveyed to the state. In addition, we were going with a plan of getting the other 2 years caught up every 6 months from that point. So at this point, they haven't said, hey, we gotta do something different or whatever. They kind of accepted that proposal.
Okay, so we're not in jeopardy of them withholding our money.
The biggest part that when I was in contact with her was just staying in touch with each other. So as long as we keep that communication link going, we should be okay.
I appreciate that. The other issue in terms of Mr. Johnson, he's doing his work because he has a lot of jobs. Because I don't know how soon we're going to appoint a treasurer, and then also how soon are we going to of the finance committee. Because Mr. Jansen, as I mentioned from an accounting standpoint, we have to have separation of duties. He cannot be charged with auditing his own work because the treasurer obviously oversees the work coming out of the accounting office. And so if Mr. Jansen is going to be tasked with doing that, in addition to being involved with payroll, that is an accounting nightmare for me. And so as soon, I don't know what your timeline is in terms of trying to get a treasurer seat.
We have an HR person,
Okay.
and we have a part-time person that's doing the billing,
And,
the checks go.
and so that's going to be supervised by Mr. Mitchell? Okay. Because Mr. Jansen, with all due respect, I think you're underpaid. You need to ask for a raise. You're doing three jobs. You're doing three jobs. But, I mean, it's not good from an accounting standpoint. So the other issue for me is that in terms of the budget, I know we're not going to have the budget on the agenda this evening, but I bring with me every time I come is the ordinance that governs the process by which the budget has to be developed. And I hope that we can still follow that process, one of which is that we have to have a finance committee review and analysis of the budget before it comes to the board for final approval. And that step, obviously, until we appoint additional members of the finance committee, we have two, I understand currently. And also, the ordinance requires that report from the finance committee be published online during the process of when the budget comes to the board for final say. So I hope we can adhere to that kind of process, because I know we're late in the process and pretty soon it's going to be a reality. We're going to know, because we can look back and see what we spent and so forth, things like that. So if we get a treasurer appointed, and then we also, I don't know, Mr. Mayor, we're going to appoint additional people to the finance committee. Are we just going to go with the two that are currently on there? And if so, they need to also be involved in analyzing the budget before it hits the board for final approval. So I'll bring this to your attention. And then also on the agenda, Mr. Jansen indicated in terms of the disbursements indicated, and I just handed him a paper, the enterprise fund. I don't know if you can see on your page, the enterprise fund. And that's an accounting term, and we're not sure, Mr. Jansen, probably correct me if I'm incorrect. We have two enterprise funds, the water fund as well as the Glenwood. Those are the only two enterprise funds that exist in the village of Glenwood. Everything else is a general fund expenditure. So we cannot, and that's number 2.2, use enterprise funds monies, to pay general fund expenses without the approval of the board. It's against the accounting principles of this board. Mr. Don, you said we're home rule, we can do virtually anything. But in terms of trying to track the money, if you will, that we try to be independent in terms of where those sources of money come from. And of course, we never were able to track down that $250,000, $250,000 that was allegedly transferred to Glenwood. So that's just still a moving item. So I would suggest that before we start moving money around, is that there has to be board approval, so that board approval, of course, with Mr. Jansen as to where that money is coming from. And so that we won't have a problem trying to track it down. So any questions in terms of, I like to have some closure on that. I always get the amens, but I never get any feedback. And so are we.
Is Adam going to join us, give us an update on this pumper? Because I agree with Commissioner Moore that is something that the board needs to address and have an understanding of immediately. Because if we're going to allow that to roll over to the next budget cycle, those are conversations we need to have before we finalize this budget. And then, Brian, so that I'm clear, and thank you, Commissioner, for raising this question. Is this in fact an enterprise fund transfer, or did we just mislabel that as a should have been TIF? Because if I'm incorrect, please correct me, but I think that anything above, I think it was 25,000 transfer from the water department specifically is supposed to come to the board. I could be wrong in that amount, but I believe that's correct.
I haven't seen that dollar amount, but I can look into it. But are you talking about the transfers I talked about earlier? The transfers I talked about earlier were transfers from contiguous TIFs.
Okay. Because it says enterprise fund.
Well, if there was an enterprise fund transfer, I would also talk to it there. Is my thought process going forward, but there wasn't anything in an enterprise fund. It's all TIF related.
Okay. So this did not come from the water fund or Glenwood?
No.
It's coming from the TIF account strictly.
Any other questions?
So I guess are we expecting some kind of response or answer at the next board meetings? So I'd like to come back up there.
So on the pumper truck, the one thing that I knew that they were waiting for was our 2022 audit, which we are not done with. So I don't think we can have that final discussion as far as the finances with them until we have that audit completed. completed. So I hate to put it off until the audit's done, but we have to get the audit done.
Okay, and I just bring that up, is, just trying to make sure that we're all on the same page. Ms. Donahue, your item in respect to, questionnaire, a question to the community, rather to the establishment, in regard to the establishment of a park district. Now, I need to get some clarification. How did that come up to the point that we're going to ask for an advisory questionnaire and then try to get something on I know the timing about getting the on the ballot, but why is this all of a sudden coming up?
Well, let me say, I'm sorry. I want to take responsibility for that because I was one that championed getting that referendum on the ballot. I can speak to that more later.
Okay, no,
but I'm not shooting.
Well, that's fine. Hey, obviously you guys
John
know.
wants to speak more.
Yeah, that's fine. I know the timing and how it has to happen. I was just curious as to why that surfaced at this point. Of course, everyone seems to know, the establishment of a park district is an extensive process from a taxpayer standpoint because it has its own governance board as well as its own taxability ability. And so I would hope that when we go out with this questionnaire, is that folks are clear, is that if we go for it, if we like it, that's fine, but there is a cost to that. And also, you would have to pass it, I understand that, but when I go out,
That's what happened in the past. You approve a park district.
yes.
And the next
We
ballot
didn't
came out.
fund it. We didn't fund it. And of course, most people didn't want to pay for it. But my point is that we had a park director program. It was very funded out of our own budgets. Okay? And so now I don't know what happened, it just kind of disappeared. The less costly option was to be funded out of our own current taxation. And if folks are in favor of a park program, which they are, and so we need to consider both options, but the option of going for a park district is an expensive option, and I just hope that we frame the question in a way that folks are clear, is that it may be nice to have, and given the recent outrage about the tax increases, optically, I don't know if I were in your seat that I would put that out. So that's my.
So I'll tell you, or just really quick, I agree with you. I think that anytime you have that conversation related to residents having to pay more taxes, it's a sensitive subject. But I also think that this board and previous boards have had a lot of concerns expressed related to activities and programming for the community. Much like as you discussed previously, in our budget, we've tried to create a line item for, forgive me, some baby, but we couldn't fund it. You and I have had this conversation, and so I would imagine maybe it was something similar to what happened to the park district in years past, that probably just couldn't sustain itself through the general fund. But I think that this gives the opportunity, at least in my opinion, for the residents to, for lack of a better word, put their money where their mouth is.
Exactly.
They are truly invested and see this type of progression for the village, then this is their opportunity to voice that. And if the overwhelming response is not to, then the community has to stand by its decision. But I think that the board owes the community the opportunity to at least have that conversation, that discussion. And if the community moves forward with it, then the community obviously benefits from it, but there's a cost to it as with anything. But I just felt that with the exorbitant amount of concern related to the lack of programming and activities for kids and things of that nature, that this was an opportunity to give the community to participate and if they want to move forward in that. So
I think it's a wonderful idea, but I'm just harkening back to the notion that if we really are concerned about activities for the youth in terms of some kind of park program, we can fund that out of our current tax base, and maybe we want to, without all the overhead that would take to have a park district, because that's kind of bureaucratic, so to speak. But you have the ability now to fund that kind of program. You have the ability to fund some of the to other programs, and I know it was a tug of war in terms of even getting the board to fund at a very minor level the different activities, football, basketball, all that stuff. I don't know if you guys recall that discussions, and they kind of begrudging, you know, we'll get this from 5,000, we'll get this from 6,000. And so my point is that you have that ability now to fund some of these activities as you so choose.
And Mr. Moore, this is what's called an advisory
I understand.
request, so it's not binding anyone.
I'm not an attorney, and I understand it. I truly understand.
Now, and the question that's proposed here does refer to both the creation of the park district and the funding of the park district. So people reading that should know that if they say yes to that, they're telling us that they're willing to have us both created.
Well, I think it should be a little bit more precise funding, because, you know, without your knowledge and maybe some other of our knowledge, people may not understand the actual ramifications of a park district vis-a-vis park program. That's not right. And so in your wording, I would hope that you would make a distinction so that if I'm not an attorney, I would be able to understand the question that you asked me. That may cost me some additional tax money vis-a-vis a park district, vis-a-vis a allocation in our general fund monies to do the same. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman Moore. Anybody else wishing to address the board? Okay, I was gonna do this at the end, but, I'm gonna do it now. To go into closed session, for approval of request executive section under 2C1, personnel with action to be taken to reconvene at the end of the meeting. So, Trustee Lynch, we have a second. Trustee Roll. Any questions? Deputy Clerk Williamson, call roll.
Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Clark? Trustee Lynch?
Yes.
Trustee Roll?
Yes.
Trustee Taylor?
Yes.
Trustee Williams?
We should be back shortly.